When you lift your head and look up at the sky, the endless void you see is actually humanity's greatest prison. From the moment we are born, we live bound by an invisible chain that condemns us to a two-dimensional plane, to the ground, gravity. We often ask what would happen if humans could fly, imagining a carefree utopia of infinite freedom. Yet the truly jarring question that science demands we ask is this: what kind of biological adaptations and monstrous mutations would a human body actually need to achieve flight with wings? Because our current anatomy is an absolute fiasco for the skies. According to the strict calculations of biologists and anatomists, lifting an average 70-kilogram human body would require a massive wingspan of at least 6 meters. But wings alone are not enough to defeat gravity. The real evolutionary nightmare begins inside our chest cavity. To support the muscles powerful enough to flap those colossal wings attached to our backs, our breastbone would have to protrude forward by at least 1 meter, much like a bird's keel. In other words, the creatures soaring through the skies would not possess smooth, aesthetic human bodies. They would be vertical beasts with massive bone structures thrusting forward like biological ships. Furthermore, to remain light enough to lift off, all our bones would evolve to be porous and hollow. This would dramatically reduce our weight, but it would also make us as fragile as glass against any physical impact. Moreover, to pump blood to the brain during steep vertical climbs, our hearts would grow to 3 times their normal size, while our metabolism would have to burn tens of thousands of calories every single day. This extreme energy consumption would drastically accelerate cellular aging, tragically shortening the average human lifespan to just the 30s. To withstand the intense pressure and freezing winds blowing at 60 kilometers per hour, a third transparent eyelid would form over our eyes, and our clothing would transform into a tight survival armor, protecting our skin from tearing apart. Yet all these anatomical deformations are merely a curse of planet Earth. If you were on Saturn's moon, Titan, right now, its dense atmosphere and incredibly low gravity would allow you to fly like a bird using small artificial wings attached to your ordinary arms, without altering your body at all. But the price of flying on Earth is turning human biology into a vertical monster. These shocking adaptations would instantly shatter civilization's concepts of property, law, and architecture. Because of our 1 meter protruding ribcage and 6 meter wingspan, the hallways of houses would widen immensely, doors would reach colossal dimensions, and being alone would become physically impossible. The cities we live in today are horizontal labyrinths built on the assumption that humans must step on the ground. If humans could fly, streets, sidewalks, and elevators would lose all meaning. The real estate sector would stop parceling land and begin selling altitude rights. Rooms would be connected by vertical tunnels rather than stairs. The ground level would turn into a dark, abandoned underworld where only industrial waste accumulates. The elites would live at high altitudes where the wind is cleanest, while those unable to fly would be condemned to the smoky chaos of the ground. As the focus of architecture shifted to the sky, restaurants built on giant trees and landing platforms on high floors would become the new hubs of social life. There is a strict evolutionary trade-off rule in nature. Flightless birds like penguins are wonderful swimmers, but flying creatures cannot exist underwater. Conquering the sky, humanity would likely lose its lung capacity and buoyancy in water, becoming completely alienated from the seas. At the systemic level, the greatest fracture would occur in security and warfare. Walls and fences can only protect humans on the ground. In a world where everyone can fly, the reality that anyone could drift through your window at any moment would completely destroy privacy. People would close their windows with bulletproof mechanical shutters and set up invisible air defense lasers around their homes. Since geographical obstacles would lose their meaning, passports and border lines would become obsolete, and the first great empires would be established at the crossroads of global wind currents. In sports, traditional tracks would collapse. And the fastest flyer in the sky would become this world's equivalent to Usain Bolt. Armies would clash to control the sky, and net launchers that immobilize the enemy midair and deliver them to gravity would become the deadliest weapons. Because in this world, falling to the ground would be the most primitive and brutal form of execution. This global shift would permanently alter human psychology and our very definition of freedom. Today, freedom for us means the ability to walk away, to change our surroundings on a flat plane. In that world, however, freedom would be measured vertically. Yet behind this magnificent visual spectacle of billions of people gliding through the air every day, a dark reality would remain. When our energy was depleted, when we fell ill, or when we aged, our biology would hurl us back to where we belong, to that cold earth we escaped. It would be the story of a species born in the air, but doomed to fall sooner or later. When you lift your head and look up at the sky, the endless void you see is actually humanity's greatest prison. And perhaps walking inside a prison is much safer than getting lost while flying in the sky.